Chapter 1180, Little Guogua showing off 3. Even the pot who was chasing after the crowd stopped and looked down at Emperor Xianyuan who was standing underneath it. Yes, this pot did not have eyes, but Emperor Xianyuan kept feeling that it was looking at him. It was like looking at him as if he was a pot of food that it could cook. It was an eerie feeling that left him terrified. The huge pot pondered for a moment and appeared before Emperor Xianyuan. The whole rusty iron pot smashed down on him. This violent force finally made Emperor Xianyuan understand the pain the other emperors had felt. Painful. Too painful. Since he had broken through to Holy Warrior tier, his head had long become as strong as iron. This was the first time he was experiencing the pain from being knocked like this in many years. In his anger, Emperor Xianyuan no longer bothered about Nan Xian, but used his sword to slash at the iron pot. Only to hear a crack. His sword that was forged using cold star iron had snapped into 2 pieces. Emperor Xianyuan's body stiffened. He stiffly raised his head and looked at the appearance of the iron pot that had acquired a little crack on its surface. The surface that was broken was the layer of rust that had long rusted. The other parts of it were unharmed. Emperor Xianyuan, this woman is a devil. Emperor Ao Tian held his head that had already been knocked uncountable times as he cried in a pitiful manner. I clearly saw that this pot was released by this woman. She is a devil. Emperor Xianyuan, let's leave. Emperor Xianyuan also felt fearful in his heart. But if he ran away, his reputation would be ruined. How would he rule Xianyuan Kingdom in the future? If this were spread out, he really would not be able to face the world anymore. Therefore, Emperor Xianyuan spoke in a serious and steady manner with a straight face. Am I the kind of person who would run away? It is just an iron pot. Could it possibly knock me to death? Furthermore, even if I die here, would have died with dignity. At least I am worthy of the people of Xianyuan Kingdom. I am dying for Fangzhou mainland. Therefore, I would rather not be a deserter. He looked upright, just, and awe-inspiring. His face was cold and his words were righteous. All the kingdom's emperors looked at Emperor Xianyuan in awe. Me for extra chapters. Of course, if his legs could stop shaking, perhaps they would believe in him a little more. Buzz buzz buzz. The huge pot got angry and it leaped up and stuffed all those people before it into itself as fast as it could. It even took out some cumin, sesame oil, salt, pepper, and chili from an unknown place and poured everything inside it. The huge pot's actions were too fast. It was so fast that before anyone could react, those people were already inside it, desperately struggling but in vain. Wow, is little Guogua making food? Qin Han smelled the fragrant cumin, and without Feng Rooking's agreement, she came out from the medium. Not only were the other people stunned, even when Gu Yi was stunned and seemed surprised when she saw Qin Han appear out of thin air. Xiao Qing, do you have a storage bag that can store living things? Otherwise, how could little Qin Han suddenly appear? Previously, she had thought Qin Han and Fu Qin, these 2 spirit beasts, had left beforehand. She had never thought that Feng Ruqing had brought them both with her. Feng Rooking's smile was a little awkward. Yes. After replying, she lightly pinched the back of Qin Han's hand, but she suddenly saw Mu Qingjian's contemplative gaze on her. A storage bag that could store living things, such a thing could be used to cheat Gu Yi, but if she wanted to hide this from second uncle, that would be a little difficult. Good thing Mu Qingyin did not ask anything and simply looked at the battlefield. Chapter 1181, Little Guogua showing off 4. As for Nan Xian, it seemed that no matter how many secrets Feng Ruqing had, he had never asked about them. Only then did Feng Ruqing let out a sigh of relief. Good thing the one who came out was Qin Han. If it were Fu Qin, a few days' worth of spirit herbs would have to be deducted as a punishment. Little Qin Han did not even notice the current situation. Her drool was literally flowing as she looked at the huge pot cooking. The huge pot obviously did not light a fire. Not knowing how, little Qin Han could already smell the fragrance. After a moment, the huge pot stopped moving. It tilted slightly to the side and poured out the group of people. The people who had entered came out perfectly without harm. Besides the various seasonings and spices stuck to their faces, the only change was their expressions. Master. They looked at Feng Ruching and called out respectfully. Monarch Xian Yuan was speechless. Even Feng Ruching was equally speechless. Not waiting for the huge pot to give Feng Ruching an answer, it once again scooped up the people, except for Emperor Xian Yuan, into the pot. It did not stop stir-frying them, but there was only the fragrance of the seasonings without the smell of food being cooked. Fu Chen. Feng Ruching took a deep breath and shouted through gritted teeth. A flash of light appeared and Fu Chen's skinny figure appeared before Feng Ruching. His face was immature and the corner of his lips carried a smile. Mother. Ask this pot how he has done it. She could only let Fu Chen handle the task of communicating with the pot. I know. Fu Chen looked at the pot. This pot is used to cook spirit herbs. The spiritual qi it contains is too strong, so it has started to have a mind of its own and thus is able to recognize its master. However, Fu Chen looked at the people who stood in front of Feng Ruching. Back then, when I was bored, I had flipped through the 9th Emperor's manuals. There was once the description of this pot. It could use its enemy's strength as its own. You are the master of this pot. Naturally, you have become the master of these people. However, he paused for a moment and continued, not all people can be changed. The pot would not be able to change people who are able to differentiate black and white clearly. This is regardless of how strong the huge pot is. Also, the huge pot is unable to suppress people who have cultivation that is too strong. People who are able to differentiate black and white clearly meant that those whose characters were too dark, or too naive and pure where the world they lived in only had white and no darkness. They had never seen darkness and thought too well of everyone, and the kind of people who were too saintly. The huge pot was able to change them. This means that these people's characters were between black and white, me for extra chapters. Their black or darkness was leaning more towards spirit beasts. However, they were not entirely bad. At least to the citizens of these kingdoms, they were considered wise emperors. If that had not been the case, the huge pot would not have been able to change these people. Of course, it was lucky that these people were only at lower holy warrior tier. That was why the huge pot had the ability to change these people. Like Emperor Xian Yuan who was at advanced holy warrior tier, the huge pot did not touch him, which simply implied that with the huge pot's current cultivation, it could at most bully him a little, and had no way to suppress him in the pot. As Fu Chen was explaining, the last of these people had also been spilled out by it and they respectfully stood by Feng Ruching's side. Greetings, Master. Feng Ruching let out a laugh. You all wanted to kill me just now? No, we were just listening to the words of the bastard of Xian Yuan Kingdom. We had almost mistakenly heard a good person. Now, we have already understood a lot of matters and are willing to obey Master. From now onwards, Master may dispatch us as Master pleases. Chapter 1182, Little Guogua showing off v. In the future, we will no longer believe in this bastard of Xian Yuan Kingdom. He had caused us to almost hurt a good person like Master by mistake. Alright. Just now, all of you scolded my man saying that he was a little white face. Feng Ruching grinningly stroked her chin. Her voice, however, was cold. The group of people shuddered inexplicably. Even the surrounding temperature seemed to have dropped quite a bit. It is the words of the bastard of Xian Yuan Kingdom, not ours. That's right. It is him. It was also him who had brought us to besiege Master. We dare not do this anymore in the future. We beg Master to forgive us and spare our lives. Emperor Xian Yuan's face changed. He was so angry that his whole body was trembling. Just at this moment, those people felt the angry gaze of Emperor Xian Yuan and so they surrounded him from all sides. Between his and Nan Xian's cultivation, he felt that they were evenly matched although he did lose out a little earlier on. Adding on to their advantage of having more people, there was no way he would have lost. However, the opposing side not only had an additional huge pot of unknown origin now. Furthermore, those people who were at Holy Warrior tier that was originally on his side had already been subdued by that huge pot. He had not even figured out what exactly had happened, but all of them had already betrayed him. What exactly did you do to them? Emperor Xianyuan and the pot that could not speak had no way of communicating. Therefore, he looked at Feng Ruqing and Nan Xian in anger and asked coldly. Impudent. After hearing this question from Emperor Xianyuan, Emperor Ao Tian, who had earlier treated him like a lord, immediately shouted angrily, "Who allowed you to be so rude to master? Apologize to master immediately." Emperor Xianyuan was speechless. He felt like he was holding in his anger and that it was stuck in his chest, causing him to almost suffocate to death in this forest. However, when he was just about to take action, he saw Nan Xian scanning him indifferently. The huge pot in the sky was also looming over him with a vague stance of wanting to crash down from the sky. On the other hand, the other skilled masters he had brought were almost all killed by Nan Xian just now. Thinking that he was alone now and that the enemy's side had too many people and their cultivation was too strong, he held back his anger. Feng Ruqing smiled and approached Emperor Xianyuan. You earlier said that my fiancé is a little white face? Emperor Xianyuan's breath was caught in his throat. Could this little girl be holding a grudge? He had only thoughtlessly said that and she had remembered it until now? I have just misjudged the situation. Could it be that I am not allowed to even misjudge? Perhaps he was worried of being beaten up. He did not even address himself as Zhen, but his old face was still stoic and he was not willing to lower his noble head. Right. I did not say that you could not misjudge, it is just that, you need to pay the price for saying something you should not have said. Little Guogua, hit him 50 times. You are not allowed to stop if the 50 hits are not completed, me for extra chapters. Buzz. Little Guogua shivered in excitement and started to smash down at Emperor Xianyuan hard. This time, Emperor Xianyuan was in so much pain that even his face twisted in agony and he started shouting in anger, "Do not bully me just because you have numbers on your side. I am telling you, if you make me anxious, no matter how many people you have, I will still take action." The huge pot was not even bothered by his threat and continued to smash down on him from high up in the sky. It was also lucky that Emperor Xianyuan's head was hard, only then did his head not split due to the smashes. However, this kind of pain was nonetheless not something an ordinary person could endure. He clenched his fist and was filled with fury. I am not kidding. If you continue to smash my head, I will take action. If you take action, 100 times. You cannot even defeat my pot, what more my fiancé? Do you think you alone are the match of so many of us? Emperor Xianyuan was really depressed. He really had no way of defeating this pot. The huge pot was more depressed. Master had actually mocked it for not being as strong as a wild man. It was obviously a huge pot who had lived for over 1,000 years. How was it not comparable to a human being? The angry huge pot did not dare to vent its anger on Nan Xian and could only vent all its anger on Emperor Xianyuan. Chapter 1183, Ancestor Mo Jun I. Emperor Xianyuan's eyes were practically spitting fire out of fury. However, seeing that he was facing the danger of so many people, his intention to revolt was suppressed. Just a while ago, he was still laughing at the crowd who were holding their heads and fleeing from the huge pot. Now, he had become the person he was laughing at. The huge pot did not appear to have the intention to stop. Each smash was more powerful than the one before. It seemed to be going all out, venting all its fury, smashing so hard that Emperor Xianyuan, who was earlier pretending to be strong, had totally lost it and was on the verge of tears. What do you want? What exactly do you want? Did I not just bring people to ambush you? Do you need to bully people like this? Feng Ruqing looked at Emperor Xianyuan's crying face and waved her hand to stop the huge pot's actions. She smiled, gently rubbed her chin, and stared at the old man who stood before her. Then, speak. Who exactly were you calling a little white face? Emperor Xianyuan really could not hold back his tears this time and started crying. His tears were rolling down his cheeks and he was full of grievances and resentment. He had merely said the phrase, "little white face," without much thought, and she had actually held a grudge to such an extent. I am the little white face. I am the little white face. Is that enough? No one who had reached Emperor Xianyuan's level was unafraid of death. Everyone in this piece of land obeyed his orders. If he were to die in this kind of place, how much of a loss would that be for him? In the beginning, he wanted to hold up his old face in front of all the emperors and thus acted as if he was very calm. Now that this group of people had already been enchanted to the point where their minds were no longer clear, he also did not have the need to care so much about his reputation and face. Staying alive was the only most important thing. Feng Ruqing scanned Emperor Xianyuan from top to bottom. The wrinkles on your face are so plentiful that they could be used to squash mosquitoes. Your skin is as dark as coal. You are telling me that you are a little white face? What about this? If you can find someone to financially support you, I will let you go. Emperor Xianyuan stopped breathing for a moment. Although he was arrogant and proud, he still had some self-awareness. Even though there were numerous beauties in the inner palace, these girls had only looked at the might he held and definitely did not fancy him because of his old wrinkly face. If he were to abandon this status, even finding a beautiful virgin would already be difficult, not to mention getting the opposite party to support him. For the first time, Emperor Xianyuan's heart had such admiration for a little white face. At least if he was a little white face, he could find someone to support him, and this life of his could still be kept. But now, he had an urge to cry out loud without holding back. Me for extra chapters. Young lady, I am already so old. Do not make things difficult for me. I just heard that you had subdued the spirit beasts and was worried that these spirit beasts would bring harm to Fangzhou mainland. That was why we had planned to first destroy you and make the spirit beasts leaderless so that they would be easier to handle. Feng Ruqing squinted. Who told you that spirit beasts would bring harm to this mainland? It was not told to me by someone else but rather passed down by the ancestors. Back then, our ancestors had difficulties subduing these spirit beasts and thus have passed down some rules. We humans should make spirit beasts our slaves in every generation and we must not allow them to rise up again. Otherwise, it will inevitably bring disaster to the mainland. We are just following the last words of the ancestors. Feng Ruqing glanced at Emperor Xianyuan indifferently. Who is your ancestor? Mo Jun. This was not a secret in Fangzhou mainland. There was nothing that could not be said. After hearing this name, Feng Ruqing's expression remained the same. Only Nan Xian's gaze had a tinge of seriousness and a vague murderous intent flashed in his clear eyes. However, he quickly hid it away and continued to look at Feng Ruqing warmly. Chapter 1184, Ancestor Mo June 2. Just like the soft moonlight and gentle wind. Qinger, just kill him and we will continue on with our journey. The man's tone was just as calm as before. His eyes were clear and cold. Feng Ruqing subconsciously nodded and her lips curled up slightly. Emperor Xianyuan's face changed after listening to these words. He looked like he was crying. Don't kill me. Don't kill me. I am still very useful. At least I, alone, am as strong as everyone here. Why don't you get the pot to refine me? I am really obedient. It was better to beg and live than to die a dignified death. Currently, there were no citizens of Xianyuan Kingdom around and there was no way of losing face here. After all, the skilled masters he brought had all died. Leaving him alone behind, he did not need to bother about his reputation anymore. After all, it was better than dying. Feng Ruqing raised her head and looked at the huge pot. The huge pot buzzed and shook desperately. Mother, the huge pot said it could not refine him. Why don't we just eat him? Fu Chen's distinct voice rang out. Emperor Xianyuan's face turned pale. He looked at Feng Ruqing in fear and then looked at the cold, calm man beside her. A chill pierced through his heart. It was so cold that he trembled a couple of times. Without refining me, I can still be used by you all. Really? Feng Ruqing gently rubbed her chin as if considering Emperor Xian Yuan's words. Emperor Xian Yuan made a difficult decision. I know the secret of the barrier. Oh. Feng Ruqing raised her brows and finally looked at Emperor Xian Yuan. You know of the barrier's existence and are still alive. You have definitely not seen the dangers of this barrier. This is the Forbidden Mountain's outer parts. If all of you are to move forward, you will enter the barrier. There are many dangers in the barrier. Bring me along. With my cultivation, at least, I can help all of you a little. Feng Ruqing smilingly said, what you have said seems to make sense. Emperor Xian Yuan subconsciously felt relieved. Before he was able to continue speaking, Feng Ruqing had already taken the sword from Nan Xian's hand and was walking toward Emperor Xian Yuan smilingly. Me for extra chapters. However, I feel that you cannot even defeat my pot. You would definitely just be a burden. Also, you cannot give us any better information, so, why not? Emperor Xian Yuan's body trembled. At the outermost part of the barrier, there is a savage beast guarding the place. That savage is called Tun and it is extraordinarily feral and fierce. However, I know its weakness. Its weakness is that it is afraid of water, but not ordinary water. It has to be spirit water that contains spiritual qi. It can corrode its body. Savage and spirit beasts were all beasts, but in reality, they were not the same. Spirit beasts were pure and kind by nature. They would only fight and kill for survival and for a way to live on. Savages were murderous by nature. Even if it was not for food, they would also torture their prey. They had caused turmoil in the human world countless times. Thus, they were known as savages and were pursued by countless people until they were confined. Oh. So? Feng Ruqing asked with a smile that did not look like a genuine smile. Emperor Xian Yuan's face changed. Then, I do not know anymore. This matter was found out by a retainer I previously had. We wanted to leave this Feng Tua mainland, too. That is why we frequently sent people to investigate this barrier. However, until now, we are still unable to figure out how to leave. Fangzhou mainland. Just by hearing this name alone, one could already guess that this was a place of exile. Resources were scarce. All of them wanted to visit the world outside to take a look and sate their curiosity. Even if the world outside was not comparable to Fangzhou mainland, they would not have any regrets. Chapter 1185, Ancestor Mo June 3. All these years, they could not even defeat the savages. If even they could not defeat it, the others would not stand a chance then. Qinger, bring him along. Nan Xian's expression was calm and indifferent. If there are any dangers, we still have him to face them. All right. Feng Ruqing frowned. However, State Preceptor, don't you feel like we have forgotten something? Nan Xian calmly shook his head. No. I have brought along everything necessary. Feng Ruqing went silent for a moment. She turned around and looked at Gu Yi and Mu Qingyin. Then she lowered her head to look at Fu Chen and Qing Han who were beside her. That was right. Everyone who should come along was there, but she still felt like something was missing. However, at the moment, she could not remember what it was that she had forgotten. Since there is nothing that we have left behind, we should continue with our journey. Feng Ruqing turned and looked at Emperor Xian Yuan and gave him a kick. You, lead the way in front. Yes. Yes, yes. To keep his life, this generation's emperor of Xian Yuan Kingdom was nodding and bowing like a pug. His face carried a forced smile of surviving a life and death ordeal. Tianyue Kingdom. In the Imperial Palace. A small little green snake yawned and slowly climbed into the house. Today, I have awoken too late. It looks so dark. That's right, where are my master and the princess? How come I do not see that bastardly couple today? Not far away, a wolfhound was slowly walking over. It was stunned when it saw Qing Zhu, who was yawning. Qing Zhu was also stunned when it saw the wolfhound. The two of them looked at each other for a couple of seconds before Qing Zhu slowly opened its mouth. Little dog, did you see that bastardly coup? Ah, Tui, did you see my master and the princess? Yes, this dog was practically the princess dog. It definitely could not speak badly about the princess in front of this dog. Otherwise, this dog would definitely tell on it. The wolfhound was stunned for a second. Master has already brought along with her the state preceptor and left. She said they were going to return to their old home. That's right, a place called Sangyu Mainland. Why are you still here? Xiao Qing's body was frozen. The blood in its whole body had also solidified. Even the air also seemed to have changed slightly. After a moment, only did Qing Zhu manage to collect its voice. It tilted its head to the side and stared. Where did you say they have left to? To their old home. However, you do not have to be too sad. Perhaps, they are unable to bring us, these beasts, when returning home. Master has also promised that she will come back in the future to bring us along with her. Me for extra chapters. You all can't follow them back to their old home, but I can. I am their fellow villager. I am also a snake from Sangyu Mainland. Now, Xiao Qing understood its current predicament. Its own master, that bastard, only had the princess in his eyes. He had left behind this living snake. Qing Zhu cried out in pain. It was too late to pack up, and so it ran away with tears, quickly disappearing into the sunset. The wolfhound could not understand why Qing Zhu was so sad. It was not like master was not returning. She had promised them that she would return. Since that was the case, they should just obediently wait for her at home. The wolfhound naturally could not understand that to Qing Zhu, being left behind by Nan Xian and Feng Ruqing felt like the sky had fallen. There was no more hope left in its whole snake life. Actually, Feng Ruqing and Nan Xian were not to be blamed. Qing Zhu very rarely appeared before Feng Ruqing, and it was not one of her spirit beasts. It was difficult for her to remember this snake. It was only because of her love for Qing Zhu that she vaguely remembered she had left something behind. As for Nan Xian. Cough cough. This bastard only had the memory span of a goldfish. Expecting him to remember Qing Zhu? That was almost impossible. Chapter 1186, Ancestor Mo June 4. Usually, Qing Zhu would follow him closely, but once it lost track, its master would forget about him. If not because of Feng Ruqing, who had always reminded him, he would not have remembered anything. In this life, Feng Ruqing was the only one that he would never forget. Forbidden Mountain. Feng Ruqing could no longer hold back the sneeze. She rubbed her nose and turned to Nan Xian curiously. State Preceptor, was someone cursing me just now? Who dares to do that? Nan Xian laughed coldly. Oh, we really haven't forgotten anything? Feng Ruqing frowned and pondered for a while. She could not recall anything that might have been left behind. She had brought everything that she needed, and only Nan Xian might have left something behind. Nan Xian shook his head. Nothing. Really? Yes, Nan Xian gently took Feng Ruqing's hand. Because I don't have anything but you. I've nothing left behind as long as you are with me. All he had was Feng Ruqing. Therefore, Nan Xian was sure that he did not leave anything behind, not even wanting to spare a thought. All right, Feng Ruqing looked relieved for a moment. Maybe because I didn't have Qiuqiu and the little dog with me, so I'm not quite used to it. I feel like I've left something behind. If you said so, then I'm relieved. Emperor Xian Yuan's face changed slightly. At this age, it was too unbearable for him to watch these young people showing affection to each other. It was better for him to send them away as quickly as possible to save his own life. Little Guogua, Feng Ruqing suddenly thought of something and turned to the huge pot. Will these people escape if their power increases? The huge pot buzzed, but Feng Ruqing did not know what it was saying. She turned again to Fu Qin. Fu Chen was quiet for a while. It says that it can't hold down the powerful one, but once he has been controlled by it, he won't escape unless he dies. All right, then I am relieved. Feng Ruching smiled happily. She lifted her hand and patted Fu Chen's head. Fu Chen, you understand not only the spirit beasts, now you can even understand the pot's language. Do you have anything that you can't understand? Fu Chen thought briefly. I saw some words in the book that said women's mind is just like a needle at the bottom of the sea. I don't understand. Woman's mind, me for extra chapters. After all, he had never heard any voice from his mother's mind. You will surely understand once you have found a girl you love. Just like you and Qing Han, when she is hungry, you can quickly understand her even just by one look. You also know when she wants to make trouble and take the lead on that. If you give your mind and heart to understand, you will have understanding. Fu Chen would always know what was on Qing Han's mind. Maybe they were both spirit herbs and that had made it easier to understand each other. Emperor Xianyuan felt uneasy. And now even the spirit beasts were showing affection in front of him. To this second, Emperor Xianyuan still thought that these two little creatures were spirit beasts. Nan Xian looked at Feng Ruching, who was holding Fu Chen's hands silently, without a word. But when he saw Gu Yi heading toward Feng Ruching, he quickly swept Gu Yi's hand with his cold, blank, indifferent gaze. Gu Yi was shocked and abruptly retracted her hand. Sob. The vixen's eyes were so scary. Xiao Qing and Fu Chen were closer, and Fu Chen was not her son. But why was Nan Xian not jealous about it? Why only her? Could it be that Nan Xian felt more threatened by her? The more Gu Yi thought about it, the more it made sense. Her pretty little face smiled happily. Her eyes were like stars, blinking as she looked at Feng Ruching. Chapter 1187, Tianshan Manor's difficulty. At this moment, Mu Qingyin somehow felt that Gu Yi was very dazzling. Maiden Feng, Emperor Xianyuan timidly paused, his voice seemed troubled with uncertainty. I've already brought you here. So, can I leave now? Feng Ruching just smiled faintly and did not say anything. By looking at her expression, Emperor Xianyuan's heart trembled violently. He pursed his lips into a hard smile. Nothing. I was just casually wondering out loud. By the way, up ahead is where the savage, Tun, is located. So, should we rest here for a while, or do we keep going forward? He knew how to deal with Tun, but he was the emperor of a kingdom with precious rank and honor after all. If not because of Feng Ruching's spirit beast that could transform into a human, he would not come here alone. And thus, he had never seen the savage. Feng Ruching paid no attention to Emperor Xianyuan. She and Nan Xian led a group of people behind them into the savage's territory. The moment they stepped into this mountain forest, they could feel that the air was somewhat different. Dark clouds were settling upon the sky, and the surrounding appeared gloomy. That was the power of the savage. Suddenly, Feng Ruching stopped in her tracks. Gu Yi accidentally bumped into her. Her nose had turned red, and her eyes were teary as she looked at the young girl who had stopped abruptly. Second uncle, take care of Gu Yi. Feng Ruching's expression was solemn as she slowly grasped the sword hilt with her hands. This windy, boisterous mountain forest had given her a powerful pressure. Roar! A deafening roar resounded through the mountain, causing the entire mountain forest to shake as if the ground was shaking. The sound gave a feeling that it could shatter the eardrum to pieces. Feng Ruching and Nan Xian remained calm, but Gu Yi's face was a bit pale. She was the weakest person among them. Hence, blood had instantly flowed from her nose, and her ears were sore. She covered her ears with her palms. Second uncle, I feel terrible. That sound continued on for a long time, and those with low strength could not bear it. If continued, Gu Yi would probably bleed to death. Mu Qingyin covered Gu Yi's hand with his hands and tightly covered her ears, hoping that this would block out some pressure. The savage is inside. Second uncle, you stay here with E. Nan Xian, let's go find that savage me for extra chapters. Gu Yi would not be in so much pain if they could stop the savage's cry. Emperor Xian Yuan abashedly said, Maiden Feng, you don't have to worry. I'll take care of them for you, you must follow me. Haha. This guy is a holy warrior. Leaving second uncle and Gu Yi to him, isn't like leaving a lamb in a tiger's den. They will never come out alive. The only way to be safe was bringing him with her. Emperor Xian Yuan was on the verge of tears as he did not want to face that savage. And, Feng Ruqing laughed. We are not certain whether the method you've given us will work or not, so you must follow me. You don't have to stay as the emperors of other kingdoms are here to protect second uncle and Gu Yi. She believed more in these people who had been transformed by the huge pot compared to Emperor Xian Yuan. Yes, master. The emperor's expression carried respect, and even their gaze toward Feng Ruqing was respectful. They were different from Emperor Xian Yuan. Chapter 1188, Tianshan Manners Difficulty 2. Emperor Xian Yuan wiped away his bitter tears. He was somewhat envious of these people who did not have to charge forward and meet the savages. They could stay safely in this place. If he had been given another chance, he would surely not come here anymore. Feng Ruqing did not say anything more. She and Nan Xian were standing eye to eye, and they immediately stepped into the gloomy mountain forest. With every step that they took, the savage's cry became more fierce, like a brassy sound, making Feng Ruqing a little bit uncomfortable. Nan Xian had sensed a change in her face and gently held her hand. A warm spiritual force flowed into her body, and this made her feel a little better. A gigantic beast that was almost as tall as a small mountain stood not far away, gazing fiercely. Its eyes were filled with bloodthirsty murder intent, roaring, shaking the entire world. However, it seemed like it had been trapped there as its emotions swirled into a mindless rage. Its body was so large that it blocked the only aisle there. They had to defeat the beast if they wanted to pass through. The savage had somehow become even more furious after seeing Feng Ruqing. Its fierce eyes were bloodshot as it angrily tried to break through the barrier that was holding it back. Roar! It was so angry that it could not help but smash through the barrier. Its eyes stared fiercely at Feng Ruqing, as wished it could kill her and cut her into pieces. Feng Ruqing was stunned. Why do I feel that? It holds a grudge against me? Fu Chen turned his head to look at Feng Ruqing. Did you abduct its daughter-in-law? Feng Ruqing's face darkened. Am I that kind of person? Fu Chen thought for a while and nodded. It is too obvious. You're the kind of villain who would abduct others' daughter-in-law. Nan Xian took Feng Ruqing's hand and pulled her into his arms. He stared at the beast with his cold, expressionless gaze. The beast was even angrier now. It is that bastardly couple again. For 1,000 years, it had become a majestic beast that was feared by everyone. It could do anything it wanted to do in this mainland. Who would dare to offend it? But everything had changed after it met that bastardly couple. Me for extra chapters. It was from that day that it, as a savage seated up high above, had fallen to the status of a watchdog, and was imprisoned for 1,000 years. It met them again today. The savage was ready to kill this bastardly couple to avenge its grievance from back then. Why do I feel it getting angrier? Feng Ruqing was stunned. Did I really abduct its daughter-in-law? It was not possible. Its daughter-in-law must be a savage too. It was tough to tame a savage, and it was impossible to tame it just with a few spirit herbs. She thought for a moment. Was it impossible that its daughter-in-law was among those spirit beasts that had followed her to Tianyue Kingdom? But looking at Tun's furious look, it seemed like what Fu Chen said just now might be true. Did she really snatch its daughter-in-law? We can't let it continue shouting. Little Guogua, smash it. Feng Ruqing quickly snapped back to reality and commanded in a stern voice. The huge pot rushed toward the savage and swiftly smashed it, but the savage's head was too hard. The huge pot growled as it felt its body being numbed by the shock. Little pot. Fong Rooking's face fell and continued. The huge pot understood the meaning of Fong Rooking's words. It turned over its body, pouring all the spirit water from itself. Chapter 1189, Tianshan Manners Difficulty 3. Emperor Xian Yuan was surprised as he looked at such a large amount of spirit water. His mouth watered. So much spirit water. As long as he was given time to absorb it slowly, it would be easy for him to make a breakthrough. But it was used to deal with the savage right now. Roar. The savage let out a monstrous roar. Its claws began to burn, and a pair of bloodthirsty eyes stared cruelly at Fong Ruching. This time it was not only filled with anger but also pain. Tun was indeed afraid of the spirit water, which could erode it, but that was all. For the mighty Tun, this would not kill it. The intense anger that it felt when facing Fong Ruching carried a deep pain, so it slammed its body desperately against the barrier. Fong Ruching turned her head to Emperor Xian Yuan. Didn't you say that the spirit water was able to deal with it? Seeing the vicious, furious Tun, Emperor Xian Yuan unconsciously gulped. Maybe that was not enough? Would you like to add more spirit water? There's no use in doing that. Without waiting for Fong Ruching to speak, Nan Xian's light and refreshing voice spoke again. The spirit water can only hurt its skin and not its bones. This spirit water won't have much effect on it. Emperor Xian Yuan's face changed as he noticed that Fong Ruching was staring at him. Her gaze carried a light that made his heart shudder, and he had subconsciously taken a few steps back. A crisp sound was suddenly heard. Fong Ruching followed the sound, and in the next moment, her face changed drastically. The barrier, which was still strong just now, was already broken, leaving a gaping hole. The savage violently slammed forward, carrying a domineering aura with its fierce eyes. Emperor Xian Yuan, who was trembling just now, cried out in shock. Maiden Fong, what have you done to this savage? It's been locked up for so many years and couldn't break it out. But why does it want to come out now and kill you? Everyone could see that the savage hated Fong Ruching so much that it would even risk its life to kill her. Fong Ruching blushed and said angrily, "Shut up, don't speak nonsense. I didn't do anything, me for extra chapters." Emperor Xian Yuan burst into tears. You should quickly return its wife to it. The savage is almost out, and once it comes out, none of us will survive. Boom! Before the savage could rush out, Nan Xian had raised his hand, and like a windstorm, he instantly hit Emperor Xian Yuan. The emperor collided with a huge tree before slowly sliding down the tree. Emperor Xian Yuan was now lying on the ground, half dead. Nan Xian stared at the savage while holding Fong Ruching tightly in his arms. I'll push you out of the way right away, and I'll deal with this savage. Nan Xian. Qinger, do you trust me? Nan Xian lowered his eyes and smiled lightly. His voice was as gentle as a breeze, and as calm as water. Fong Ruching froze. I've just recalled something just now. This savage should not have lived up to today, as its time has long gone. Someone has kept it alive by using that formation so that it could guard this world. You need to break the seal, and the formation will surely disappear together with the savage. But you, Qinger, I believe in you. I believe you can make it disappear. If you believe in me, when it rushes out later, I'll push you out of the way. I'll deal with it and return to you alive. Fong Ruching clenched her fists harder, breathing heavily. The man's slender fingers brushed through her hair with a smile. Qinger, trust me, okay? Chapter 1190, Tianshan Manners Difficulty 4. Qinger, trust me, okay? Fong Rooking's voice was stuck in her throat for a moment before she said, all right. She believed him. Nan Xian would fulfill anything that he had promised her. Nan Xian. Fong Ruching lifted her hand and grabbed Nan Xian's lapel. Don't force yourself if you can't fight it, and run when you should. If you dare to die in a place like this, they'll throw your body to Jiu Ming and he will do whatever he wants with you. Nan Xian was speechless. One more thing. I'll be waiting for you on the other side of the boundary, and you must come to me. If you don't come, I'll really throw you to Jiu Ming. That man is a pervert, and he even has lots of dirty thoughts about you. Nan Xian lifted his hand and pulled that girl into his embrace. Don't worry, how could I ever leave you? Yes. How could he ever leave her? Several thousand years ago, Nan Changfeng had died in the 9th Emperor's arms, but the boy was never afraid of anything. He was not afraid of death. He was only afraid that once he died, he would never see her again. How could he leave her alone in this world? No, that was not right. The 9th Emperor was never alone, as she had had countless women in her harem. But Nan Changfeng had always felt that once he left this world, the 9th Emperor would be lonely. There was no difference now. He would live a full life for her sake. All right. Feng Ruking's voice trembled a bit as she left Nan Xian's embrace. Emperor Xian Yuan panicked. Take me with you. I want to leave this place, too. I'm afraid. No one answered him. Feng Ruqing had sent Fu Chen and Qing Han to the medium. They could not help much with their strength, and having them here would only drag Nan Xian down. Fu Chen always thought that he had become strong after he had woken up and was not expecting that he would be a burden to anyone. Me for extra chapters. However, facing such a powerful beast, he could not do anything but leave this place with Feng Ruqing. Nan Xian would never let them stay. He did not know if there was still any danger inside. Fu Chen had to follow Feng Ruqing so he could face this fierce beast peacefully. Pop! The barrier was completely shattered into pieces. Initially, that barrier was invisible to people, and only that savage could sense the barrier's existence. But once it shattered, the pieces changed into countless rays of light and dissipated into the air. As the beast rushed forward, Feng Ruqing only felt that her whole body had loosened up. She then transformed into a sharp sword and flew away swiftly, gradually disappearing from Nan Xian's eyes. Nan Xian was at ease now. His white robe floated with the wind as he stood, staring at the beast with his cold gaze. The beast could not catch Feng Ruqing anymore, so it took all its anger out on Nan Xian, and with a furious roar, the huge mountain-like figure rushed over to him. The whole sky darkened as if there were black clouds overhead, making the surroundings seem gloomy. A short distance away, Feng Ruqing fell throughout the void, landing safely in a pile of messy grass. She stood up and clenched her fists tightly as she looked back in the direction from where she had flown a moment ago before slowly retracting her gaze. Mother, Fu Chen's soothing voice came from the medium. Father is so powerful, so you don't have to worry. He will definitely come back for you. He will return. Chapter 1191, Tianshan Manor's difficulty. Fu Chen emphasized those last 3 words as if to convince himself to believe Nan Xian. Feng Ruqing looked determined. Well, I believe in him too. Because he was her state preceptor. He was the one she had decided to be with since the very beginning after coming to this mainland. She was willing to believe every word he said, forever. Let's go. We can't waste any more time. I must break this seal quickly to save him. If Nan Xian was struggling there, then she must not let him down. The sky here was much brighter than that place, and even the air was exceptionally fresh and crisp. Feng Ruqing quickly made her way to the edge of the mountain to break the seal. She walked as fast as the wind, leaving only a shadow behind. To leave Fangzhou mainland, Feng Ruqing and Nan Xian had gotten themselves into danger. And at the same time, Tianshan Manor was not in a good situation either. Since that day, after receiving a group of skilled masters from Jia Xian, Mu Huan did not go to the Mu family to pick Chen Qinyan, but she went to the Qin family first to look for Qin Li. Qin Li had long planned to rebel, but he was weak. He had just made a breakthrough to lower Holy Warrior tier a few years ago. He took many spirit herbs during this whole year of closed-door cultivation but could not continue to make a breakthrough. But Chief Manor Gu Shi had reached intermediate holy warrior tier earlier. With just one tier of difference, the level of strength was so different. Otherwise, Qin Li would not have wanted to kill Gu Yi to make Gu Shi lose his will to live just so he could seize the throne. However, everything had changed since Mu Huan's arrival. Mu Huan had given Qin Li a spirit herb that could enhance the cultivator's strength. But this spirit herb was limited only to women. Qin Li's first thought was Qin Fei'er. Therefore, he had given Qin Fei'er the spirit herb without hesitation. Qin Fei'er's strength was indeed good, but her illness back then had stopped her from cultivating. Because of that spirit herb, she could enhance all the strength and had made a breakthrough to advanced holy warrior tier. Me for extra chapters. Qin Li was pleasantly surprised when it worked, but the Qin family's Lady Wen Yu was so worried about her daughter. Qin Li was blinded by greed. He had never once wondered that if this spirit herb was perfect, why did Mu Huan not use it himself, but instead gave it to the Qin family? If there was no repercussion, how could it be so effective? The situation in Tianshan Manor had changed after Qin Fei'er's breakthrough. Various clans had sensed the tense atmosphere and split into two factions. One faction, led by the old master of the Mu family, stood on the chief manor's side. The other faction was those who had sensed something weird but still chose to stay with the Qin family because of their fear of death. A war within Tianshan Manor was on the verge of breaking out. The Qin family. In a young girl's room, Qin Fei'er was sitting in front of the window, staring blankly at the lake outside the window. She was so beautiful, but the wrinkles had already spread from the corners of her eyes. "Xiao Yu, have I been aging a little more lately?" Qin Fei'er touched the corners of her eyes and asked in a faint voice. Xiao Yu, Qin Fei'er's new servant, lowered her head timidly as she replied, "Young lady always looks young and beautiful." "Xiao Yu," Qin Fei'er laughed bitterly. "Don't lie to me. I'm very conscious of my appearance. I've aged faster since I took the spirit herb given by my father. And look. I already have white hair." Chapter 1192, Tianshan Manor's difficulty 6. Xiao Yu stiffened, not daring to say more. Fortunately, Qin Fei'er had always been very kind to her servants. She did not force her to say much but continued muttering to herself, "That spirit herb is so effective, it will take something from me for sure. I've used all of my strength to make a breakthrough to such a powerful tier, which means I'll also lose my youthful years. Young lady, many people in Tianshan Manor have spent their entire life to break through to advanced holy warrior tier. Young lady has been able to make a breakthrough. It is enough to prove that young lady is so talented and powerful." Xiao Yu looked up and said. Qin Fei'er chuckled. "He hasn't returned yet?" Xiao Yu naturally knew who Qin Fei'er was referring to and replied respectfully, "Young Master Qin Chen is in the Mu family and has never returned. Chainer is not my brother, but I've treated him as my own brother. But, I'm no match for that outsider." Qin Fei'er clenched her fists tightly, then loosened them after a while. "I still let him go, so I want him to come back now, and since he has chosen to do this, there is nothing I can do." Qin Fei'er knew that the Qin family owed Qin Chen a debt, and she had done her best to make up for it. But why did he still choose to leave? "Xiao Yu, Qin Chen had left the last drug primer before he left, and am reluctant to use it. Please bring it to me." The drug primer, which was drawn through fresh blood, had been her life-saving drug. "Hasn't young lady recovered from her illness?" "Young lady looks healthy since the breakthrough," Xiao Yu asked dumbly. Qin Fei'er smiled lightly and said, "The Qin family has not kept anything of his since he left. He has abandoned our love and left the Qin family, so why should I be too attached to it? Bring it to me." He had used countless spirit herbs to prepare the drug primer, so it is very precious. "We can't waste it." "Yes, young lady." Xiao Yu bowed respectfully and left. Qin Feier stared at the sky casually. She did not blame Feng Ruching for taking Nan Xian away from her because Qin Feier was too slow and did not seize the opportunity quickly. However, Feng Ruching should not have killed the servant who had been like her sister since she was a child, and Feng Ruching should not have taken her brother whom she had cared so much for. Ever since that day, she was no longer the weak and innocent Qin Feier she once was. Me for extra chapters. Her father was right. To deal with a wicked person like Feng Ruching, she had to be stronger than her. So powerful that she would no longer dare to bully her Qin family again. Feier, when you had walked through the door and stood behind Qin Feier. Her gaze carried a hint of worry. Qin Feier stood up. Mother, it's getting late. We've given the Mu family and the Luo family time to consider, and now they must choose between Gu Shi and us. Wen Yu stared worriedly at the wrinkles that had appeared in the corners of Qin Feier's eyes, and there was some regret in her heart. She did not know whether it was right or wrong for her to kill the servant and blame Feng Ruching deliberately. She knew that the servant was important to her daughter, but she had still beaten her to death with a stick angrily and had hurt her daughter. She was tolerant before, but now she was greedy for power. Of course, the servant's death was just bait, and Qin Chen's departure was like adding oil to the fire. What made anger boil up in Qin Feier was her resentment, jealousy, and grudge. Her emotions had been hidden for so long that even she had not noticed it. But all it took was a few catalysts to coax the anger until it was impossible to hide it anymore. Chapter 1193, Tianshan Manor's Difficulty 7. The Mu Family. The old Master Mu was sitting high above everyone. His face darkened, and his gaze was cold and serious. Besides Mu Ling, there were a few uncles of the Mu family sitting below him. These people looked unpleasant, and some of them frowned. Master, if the Qin family wants to rebel, we have to choose one of them. Qin Feier's strength has surpassed Gu Shi now. If we side with the Gu family, maybe the Mu family will be in deep trouble. That's right, Master. Anyway, Gu Shi has seized his place as the chief manor. His action is illegitimate, and he might be destroyed as his strength is not powerful enough right now. So why should we interfere? In my opinion, it's better for us to side with the Qin family. Don't be like that fool of the Luo family, who was captured by the Qin family for supporting Gu Shi. Now their fate is unknown, and those clansmen of the Luo family all hate him to death. Master, for the sake of the Mu family, you must make a choice. It's not easy for our Mu family to survive in Tianshan Manor for so many years. We can't let our empire be destroyed by them. Old Master Mu's cold face grew colder, yet he never uttered a single word, and the people were unable to guess what was on his mind. Just then, a light laugh came from outside the door. They turned their heads and saw a beautiful figure with a long snow-colored robe coming from the door. From the moment Sui appeared, Mu Ling's eyes were fixed on her. His eyes were somewhat dazed as he could not keep his eyes off her. He had not been able to get close to Sui since she moved into the old master's yard a year ago. It was as if time was stopped at this moment. His eyes were filled with the figure of a woman who looked like an immortal, stunning like their first encounter back then. Time had blessed her as she had no marks on her face. Compared to him and Chen Qinyan, both were already old. Only she remained the same, stunning as before. Sui walked in with a smile. It's impossible for you guys to give up Gu Shi. The old master and Gu Shi have decided the marriage between Xiao Qingyin and Gu Yi. Just wait for them to come back to set the marriage. Do you think the old master will abandon the Gu family and Xiao Qingyin? The uncles' expressions had changed drastically. They hated Chen Qinyan and accepted Sui, but for them, the Mu family's matters must come first, and conspiring with Gu Shi at this time would send them to death. Me for extra chapters. Young lady, master and the Gu family only made a verbal agreement, so it doesn't matter. Since the second young master has recovered, there are no worries about finding another woman. Sui smiled and said, firstly, am not the young lady of the Mu family, as your young lady is only Qin Qinyan. Secondly, Xiao Qinyin and the old master are both men of great affection. What makes you think that they would abandon Gushi? The hall was windless, but the corner of Sui's robe was swaying gently. Her gaze was as calm as before, but the coldness in her black eyes was unsettling. Pop! Old Master Mu smashed the table with his hand and stood violently. That's enough. Master. Everything will be done according to Sui's words, and since I've promised Gushi to get married, I won't break that promise. What was the difference between a man and a beast if he did not keep his word? He was not Mu Ling, who could ignore the promise he had given to Sui back then. He had promised Gushi with the engagement, and no matter what, the Mu family could not break their promise. Chapter 1194, Tianshan Manners Difficulty 8. It was the basic principle of being human. But, Master, the Mu family's men, led by Mu Ying, were a little panicked as they tried to persuade the old master. What about the Mu family's empire that has existed for years? Are you just going to sit back and watch our empire be destroyed by them? Old Master Mu smiled sardonically. After asking me to abandon the Gu family, will you guys ask me to send Nan Xian to Qin Feier again? The breaths of the crowd were caught in their throats. In fact, they did think so. Qin Feier had made a breakthrough to advanced holy warrior tier, a realm most people would never reach in their lifetime. The Mu family's position in Tianshan Manor would be stable and secure if they joined the Qin family's side. They did not have the guts to say that in front of Sui and the old master, so they expressed their thoughts with their expressions. Master Mu laughed even more coldly. I'd rather destroy 10 temples than break up a relationship. Nan Xian loves that young girl Xiao Qin. He doesn't like the Qin family's girl. You want him to marry Qin Feier? Nonsense. Mu Ying paused, gaining courage before saying, but Mu Ling and Qin Qinyan were once in love, didn't you split them up too, master? This time, it was not just the old Master Mu, even Mu Ling's expression changed. Mu Ling never thought that Mu Ying would bring up this matter. He looked at Sui carefully, and after seeing her face as expressionless as ever, he was a bit disappointed again. The old Master Mu looked at Mu Ying coldly. Like a mother, like a daughter. Now look, my perspective is correct. Not long ago, the old Master Mu had beaten Qin Qinyan badly outside his courtyard, not that he had not seen it, but instead, he felt that it was soothing to watch. Qin Qinjian's mother had killed his beloved wife, and even if he died, he would never want such a daughter-in-law. He had already become enemies with her and could not live under the same sky. He did not kill Qin Qinyan because she was too young back then, but it did not mean that he could accept Qin Qinyan as part of his family. Only Mu Ling, a man with no taste, loved Qin Qinyan so much that he had often visited her young mother, causing her to fall in love with him. Well, Mu Ling was already grown up back then, so he felt sorry for Qin Qinyan who had lost her mother at a young age. But why did he not give this empathy to Mu Qinyin? Compared to Qin Qinyan, Mu Qinyin had not seen his mother since birth. How could he not hate her? Me for extra chapters. Besides, the old master smiled coldly. Can a son be like a grandson? All my sons are bastards, and only my grandchildren have listened to me. Mu Ling was speechless. Somehow, he felt a pain in his heart. Sui cleared her throat and said awkwardly, Old Master, Xiao Qinyin must be sad if he knows this. Oh, that has nothing to do with me. The old Master Mu glanced at the people present coldly. You can't discuss much here either, so this is the end of today's meeting. All of you are dismissed. The people were a bit hesitant and wanted to continue to persuade him, but the old Master Mu's temper had always been too difficult to handle. Master. Suddenly, a voice came through the door in a haste. When the old Master Mu looked up, he saw one of the guards running into the hall, sweating and almost crying. Old Master, something bad has happened. The scouts reported that people from the Qin family are heading this way, seemingly heading to our Mu family. Chapter 1195, Tianshan Manners Difficulty 9. Just as the words were spoken, the once quiet main hall became noisy in a blink of an eye. Everyone's eyes were filled with fear and panic. They were afraid that the Mu family would be destroyed. They were even more afraid that they would lose their lives here. Master, quickly think of a solution. If there really is no choice, then cut all connection with Gushi. After that, bring young Master Nan Xian. That's right, and that guy called Qin Chen, and send them both out. You cannot go down the history of the Mu family as the person who caused the downfall of the family. Those people were speaking in turn and were so anxious that tears were almost about to fall. Old Master Mu was righteous and his face was kind and dignified. This time, he was no longer looking at anyone. He did not even glance at his own son. He looked at Sui alone. Sui, looks like only we can handle these people this time. Sui gave a small smile and said, no problem. I stayed here for Old Master. It is not related to other people. The survival or destruction of the Mu family is not related to me. I am only here for Old Master who has treated me well back then. Ha ha ha, Sui, in the future, do not address me as Old Master anymore. You can address me as father as you did before. Not as a daughter-in-law, but rather as a daughter. You were unable to become my daughter-in-law, but you are still my daughter. Calling me father is not too much, is it? Old Master laughed and said. Sui's heart felt warm. Father. She was an orphan and was alone in a foreign land. She was also not the biological daughter of Old Master. Yet she was able to experience the warmth of a family from him. Therefore, she had chosen to stay in the Mu family to accompany the lonely Old Master until Mu Qingyin returned. The old housekeeper walked into the hall. He was obviously already very old, but his spine was rigid and straight, great and tall like the generals on a battlefield. Old Master, from the moment you took me in back then, my life was already yours. Also, the orphans that Lady Sui had taken in back then, they are here. Therefore, it will not be just the two of you. Although the Mu family's people are not willing to go to the battle, you still have us. Old Master's old face twitched and finally turned into a small smile. Good. Ha ha ha. I have never been afraid of anyone in my entire life. If the Mu family is no more, we can rebuild it again another day. If credibility is lost, the entire life is gone. He had never done anything that would go against his principles and abandon righteousness in his entire life. To him, keeping promises was more important than life itself. Just like back then, he had promised that he would only acknowledge his first daughter-in-law in his entire life, only Sui alone. He would not go back against his words in this lifetime. Master, me for extra chapters. The moment Old Master was about to step out of the main hall, another guard rushed over, put his fist to his palm, and reported, young lady has returned. Young lady? Mu Huan? Old Master frowned. Mu Huan had disappeared for quite some time. Why did she return home now? Old Master did not like Qin Qingjian's two children. However, they were still considered to be in the same generation of his grandchildren. He would not give them a part of the Mu family, but similarly, he also did not wish for them to lose their lives just like that. Make her leave. Old Master's face was stern. If it was Mu Shi, then he could have let it go. After all, he was a man from the Mu family. He definitely did not wish for his own grandson to be a weakling. Mu Huan was a girl and naturally did not need to charge to the front lines for her family clan. Truth be told, no matter how much Old Master Mu disliked these two children, he was still clear that their personalities were problematic because Qin Qingyan had brought them up them wrongly. Children are blank slates. Chapter 1196, Mu Huan's Threat. Mu Huan looked at Old Master Mu with a cold gaze and an expressionless face. The Mu family is currently in such a dangerous predicament. I cannot stand aside and just watch from the sidelines. Today, I have come to help the Mu family. You do not have the right to chase me away. Old Master Mu's face turned pale. His good intentions had been twisted into ill intentions. Since she had such thoughts, then there was no need for him to say anything more. He had already reached his limit of compassion toward Shin Qingjian's 2 children. The eyes of the uncles in the Mu family that were originally dim, lit up when they heard Mu Huan's words. However, the Mu family was facing unprecedented dangers this time. Did Mu Huan really have the ability and sufficient cultivation to help the Mu family? Mu Ling did not have much hatred or disgust toward Mu Huan as she was still his blood and flesh. Back then when Nan Xian had treated him the way he did, he was able to endure that. Even when Mu Shi was such a jerk, he was still able to turn a blind eye to his actions. Through these, one could see that he had quite a bit of tolerance toward his own blood and flesh. Currently, everything that had gone wrong was all Shin Qingjian's fault. These 2 children were all innocent. Mu Ling was just about to call out to Mu Huan when he saw Sui, who was calm as usual from the corner of his eye. In the end, he swallowed back the words that were at the tip of his tongue. Sui did not like Qin Qingyan and disliked these 2 children even more. So, if he wanted Sui to forgive him, he definitely could not display any care or concern toward Mu Huan now. Mu Huan, however, was looking at Mu Ling in expectation. Her face fell and turned cold. She suddenly recalled the words Mu Shi had said a few days back and involuntarily clenched her fist as she sneered. Mu Ling, my mother has always been affectionate toward you. Yet, you have almost beaten her to death for another woman. Now, the sins the Mu family is bearing is the retribution you deserve. That was right. This was retribution. It was a good thing that heaven was not blind, allowing her to obtain Lord Jia Xin's affection and thus obtaining this opportunity, to let these people who had badly hurt them, mother and daughter, compensate. Huaner. Mu Ling's face changed and carried a hint of anger. Did you just shout at me? When did you become so disrespectful? Mu Huan's lips curled up sardonically. You have abandoned my mother for an outsider who has long left the Mu family and even tormented her to such an extent. Do you really consider me your daughter? Today, I am here to tell the Mu family that I have the ability to protect the Mu family, but that depends on what the Mu family does. Just as she finished speaking, a few figures appeared and stood behind Mu Huan. These people all had cold, stern looks, just like an icy, watchful sculpture. Their gazes carried appalling murderous intent. Me for extra chapters. What was more shocking was that these people's cultivation were all of holy warrior tier. Even the worst amongst them was at intermediate holy warrior tier. There were even 2 who were at advanced holy warrior tier. Mu Ling finally understood why Mu Huan had such courage to speak the words she had spoken. Immediately, he looked at Mu Huan's belly. There was a slight bulge at her abdomen. As it was not obvious, he had initially thought that she had gained weight. It was only then, Mu Ling noticed that Mu Huan had been putting her hand on her belly this whole time as a sneer hung on her face. It was so glaring. Huaner, you are pregnant? These words were like thunder on a sunny day, shocking all the people present. Even for a snobbish man like Mu Ling, his eyes were full of fury at this moment. He had indeed thought of using Mu Huan to forge a marital alliance, but now, Mu Huan was not even married. Getting pregnant before marriage, where would this leave the Mu family's reputation? How could he bear this? Chapter 1197, Mu Huan's Threat 2, You do not need to meddle in my affairs. I am here this time for Sui's life. Mu Huan's eyes were full of fury. If Mu Ling were to personally kill Sui, then I am willing to give the Mu family a chance. I will level the Qin family. All of you can see the people behind me. These people are not the strongest ones on my husband's side. If all of you do not agree, then I will let the Mu family's life and death run its own course. She had initially used the Qin family and not personally taken action to force Mu Ling to personally kill Sui. That person was the culprit who had snatched away her father and the cause of her mother's depravity. If it were not because of the Sui and her son, she would not have had to serve a man she did not even love. All these grudges, she vented them on Sui. Her eyes were full of anger and even carried murderous intent. Mu Ling's body froze. He had never had to make such a choice throughout his life. One was his family clan, another was a woman he already owed a lot to. Mu Huan, do you really wish to do this? Mu Ling's voice was a little shaky, seemingly containing an insuppressible anger. Do you know what you are doing? This was not Sui's fault. Mu Huan never thought that at such a critical juncture, Mu Ling still spoke on behalf of Sui. The hatred in her eyes increased. Mother had told me that the two of you knew each other first and were truly in love. Sui was someone who came after that. It was she who had stolen the marriage that should have belonged to my mother. All this is her fault. Mu Huan. Mu Ling shouted. Back then, Sui did not know about the relationship between your mother and me. Yes, I had promised to take care of Chen Qinyan. It was I who had gone back on my words. However, I still allowed her to enter the Mu family. I had previously thought that she had saved me a couple of times and felt guilty, thus I had made such a promise to her. Now I realized, the thought of giving one's life to save another is just a joke. Ever since he got to know about Chen Qinjian's character, Mu Ling realized many things. He also realized how many things he had done in the past that had hurt Sui. No matter how much entanglement there was between Chen Qinyan and his relationship, Sui was innocent. She was someone who had no knowledge of it. She had always thought that he and Chen Qinyan were merely cousins. It was him who had kept it all a secret. Now that Mu Huan was making such accusations, it made him feel depressed. It even seemed as if dark clouds were floating above his head. Now, I do not care. Mu Ling, I will only give you a chance. Will you kill Sui, or not? Mu Huan sneered. I have long understood you. Might, status, and family clan were always the most important things in your heart. You have forced Nan Xian to marry a wife and take in concubines for power. You would even more so force me to give myself away. However, now, I have found a person to rely on all on my own. In the future, I will no longer need to count on you. Mu Ling turned silent. His handsome face turned pale. He slowly turned his head and looked at a woman dressed in white. She was elegant and otherworldly, like a fairy from a painting. The wind was lightly blowing and the sky was clear. She looked incredibly calm and collected, as if she was not affected in any way by the words Mu Huan had spoken. Perhaps, she had long been disappointed in him. Let me see who dares to hurt Sui. Old Master Mu shouted in anger and walked in front of Sui. Mu Huan, compared to Mu Shi, I have always thought you were a good child although you had a bad temper. It was just that you were brought up wrongly by your mother. Now, as I see it, a daughter takes after her mother. It is hereditary and cannot be changed. Chapter 1198, Mu Huan's Threat 3. Chen Qinjian's mother was like that. Chen Qinyan was like that. Now, even Mu Huan was like this. It was true what the saying says, like mother, like daughter. Mu Huan sneered at old Master Mu. You old thing, you have no right to open your mouth in this place. If it were not because of this old thing, her mother would not have had such a pitiful life. 1,000 cuts at these Mu family's people were not sufficient to vent her anger. Old Master Mu shook his sleeves and stood upright with his back ramrod straight. His calm tone carried unruffled confidence. I am the head of the Mu family. I have the right to decide on any matters regarding the Mu family. Hee, Mu Huan sneered without care. The Qin family's people are about to arrive. You want to defend Sui. Have you ever thought about how the other members of the Mu family feel? This is the end of you being the Mu family's head. As predicted, the weak-minded uncles of the Mu family had ugly expressions on their faces. To them, sacrificing Sui alone to keep the whole Mu family was too good of a deal. Only the head of the family would be so stubborn as to keep her alive. Master, Nan Sui is no longer a member of our Mu family. We can let it go that you decided not to abandon Gu Shi, but to abandon the whole Mu family for an outsider. Is it worth it? Currently young Lady Mu Huan has this kind of capability. We need to agree to any of young Lady Mu Huan's conditions. Now, it is only her who is able to protect our Mu family, me for extra chapters. Master, what are you still thinking about? Later on, we will hold back old master. You go and settle Nan Sui. As long as the Mu family is protected, is there any kind of woman you would not able to have? If we lose the Mu family, there would be nothing left. Mu Huan's brows were covered in delight. So what even if these people had previously accepted Sui? With just a few words from her, was she not able to get rid of Sui? This was the advantage of having power. For the first time, she was a little grateful that her mother had given her away to Jia Xian. Otherwise, she would not have had such undefeatable power. Furthermore, these snobs would not have so easily agreed and bow to her. Furthermore, she had the power to decide on Sui's life and death. A man like Mu Ling who was so afraid of death and so greedy for power would definitely not abandon the Mu family for a woman. Too bad, sometimes, one could not have too many self-righteous thoughts. Mu Ling was indeed heartless and a flirt, but over these 20+ years, he only had Sui and Chen Qinyan. Tan Shuangshuang was an exception. She was not what he had wanted. He was similarly greedy for power. However, his greed for power was only limited to letting his sons and daughters marry for alliances and betraying their happiness. Nevertheless, he would never give up his own happiness. After all, the two women he had were orphans without any background. With Mu Ling's status and cultivation, creating marital alliances with other big families was considered normal. If Chen Qinyan did not exist in this life, perhaps Mu Ling would not have become a scum. However, this was destiny. He was destined to be unworthy of having Sui. Huaner, Mu Ling's tone became softer as his eyes begged. I am willing to forgive all that Qinyan had done. I will make her my official wife. I am only begging you, to save the Mu family. Thud. His knees fell hard to the ground as he kneeled on the floor in the silent Mu family's courtyard. To him, official wife was merely a title. Not to mention he could no longer be humane toward her, even if he could, just based on the things Chen Qinyan had done, he could not forgive her. Chapter 1198, Mu Huan's Threat 3. Chen Qinjian's mother was like that. Chen Qinyan was like that. Now, even Mu Huan was like this. It was true what the saying says, like mother, like daughter. Mu Huan sneered at old Master Mu. You old thing, you have no right to open your mouth in this place. If it were not because of this old thing, her mother would not have had such a pitiful life. 1,000 cuts at these Mu family's people were not sufficient to vent her anger. Old Master Mu shook his sleeves and stood upright with his back ramrod straight. His calm tone carried unruffled confidence. I am the head of the Mu family. I have the right to decide on any matters regarding the Mu family. Hee, Mu Huan sneered without care. The Qin family's people are about to arrive. You want to defend Sui. Have you ever thought about how the other members of the Mu family feel? This is the end of you being the Mu family's head. As predicted, the weak-minded uncles of the Mu family had ugly expressions on their faces. To them, sacrificing Sui alone to keep the whole Mu family was too good of a deal. Only the head of the family would be so stubborn as to keep her alive. Master, Nan Sui is no longer a member of our Mu family. We can let it go that you decided not to abandon Gu Shi, but to abandon the whole Mu family for an outsider. Is it worth it? Currently young Lady Mu Huan has this kind of capability. We need to agree to any of young Lady Mu Huan's conditions. Now, it is only her who is able to protect our Mu family. Master, what are you still thinking about? Later on, we will hold back old master. You go and settle Nan Sui. As long as the Mu family is protected, is there any kind of woman you would not able to have? If we lose the Mu family, there would be nothing left. Mu Huan's brows were covered in delight. So what even if these people had previously accepted Sui? With just a few words from her, was she not able to get rid of Sui? This was the advantage of having power. For the first time, she was a little grateful that her mother had given her away to Jia Xian. Otherwise, she would not have had such undefeatable power. Furthermore, these snobs would not have so easily agreed and bow to her. Furthermore, she had the power to decide on Sui's life and death. A man like Mu Ling who was so afraid of death and so greedy for power would definitely not abandon the Mu family for a woman. Too bad, sometimes, one could not have too many self-righteous thoughts. Mu Ling was indeed heartless and a flirt, but over these 20+ years, he only had Sui and Chen Qinyan. Tan Shuangshuang was an exception. She was not what he had wanted. Me for extra chapters. He was similarly greedy for power. However, his greed for power was only limited to letting his sons and daughters marry for alliances and betraying their happiness. Nevertheless, he would never give up his own happiness. After all, the two women he had were orphans without any background. With Mu Ling's status and cultivation, creating marital alliances with other big families was considered normal. If Chen Qinyan did not exist in this life, perhaps Mu Ling would not have become a scum. However, this was destiny. He was destined to be unworthy of having Sui. Huaner, Mu Ling's tone became softer as his eyes begged. I am willing to forgive all that Qinyan had done. I will make her my official wife. I am only begging you, to save the Mu family. Thud. His knees fell hard to the ground as he kneeled on the floor in the silent Mu family's courtyard. To him, official wife was merely a title. Not to mention he could no longer be humane toward her, even if he could, just based on the things Chen Qinyan had done, he could not forgive her. Chapter 1199, Mu Huan's threat for however, he could not kill Sui. He also did not wish to give up on the Mu family. Hopefully by doing this, Mu Huan would be willing to lend a hand. Haha. Mu Huan started to laugh until she started to tear. Her eyes were full of fury and disappointment. I never thought that you would make such a decision. You would rather beg me than kill Sui? When have you ever begged someone who was of a younger generation? Mu Ling, why was it that initially, when Nan Xian had treated my mother that way, you did not beg him? You should have kneeled down to beg him. I do not believe that if you had kneeled, he would still have beaten up my mother. Yet for Sui, you are actually begging me? Mu Huan's eyes were bloodshot and looked like they were about to pop out of their sockets. The more you beg me, the more I want to kill her. This despicable person should have died. A woman who steals another man's husband will die miserably. Until now, Mu Huan still felt that if it were not for Sui's existence, Chen Qinyan would have become Mu Ling's wife, and furthermore would not have suffered for so many years. When she thought about all the sufferings Chen Qinyan had to undergo, Mu Huan became so angry that she wanted to kill people. She looked at Nan Sui angrily. Mu Ling cannot bear to kill you. Then I will give you a chance. If you care about the Mu family, care about the Mu family's old master, you can kill yourself. Don't worry, I will not kill you. Either Mu Ling kills you or you commit suicide. As long as you die, I will save the Mu family. Sui calmly glanced at Mu Huan. Alright, then just annihilate the Mu family. Her words were calmly spoken and brushed past the ears of the crowd like a gentle breeze. That sentence was spoken so simply, just like asking someone to have a meal. Mu Huan was stunned. This was the woman that Mu Ling liked to the point that he was willing to abandon the Mu family? It seemed like it was just a person who was afraid of death. Nan Sui. Mu Ling shouted in anger. Your life in exchange for the survival of the entire Mu family is worth it. Who are you to reject this proposition? That's right. You are an orphan without any parents. Our Mu family has fed you for so many years, and now you have lived in our Mu family for a whole year without paying. Now that the Mu family is in trouble, you want to distance yourself from these matters? Young Lady Mu Huan, this woman is afraid of death. It is impossible that she would choose to end herself. Why don't we all get together to kill her? What do you think? Mu Huan did not reply, but looked at Nan Sui provocatively. Me for extra chapters. Nan Sui calmly glanced at the Mu family's clansman who stood behind her. Her face was calm and cool. I think annihilating your Mu family is quite a good idea. After all, as long as Old Master and Xiao Qingyin are around, there will always be a Mu family. Old Master Mu laughed loudly. Sui is right. As long as I am around, nobody is to touch her. The Mu family should have long been sorted out. If you have the ability, then let the Qin family destroy all of my Mu family's people. Ha ha ha. With this incident, he was thoroughly disappointed in his clansmen. If he was lucky enough to survive this time, he would need to sort things out properly. The group that was led by Muing should not be kept in the Mu family. All these people appeared to be the people of the Mu family, but in reality, they belonged to the extended families. They were at least 2 generations apart, and some relations that were supposed to be cousins could not really be counted as cousins. It was merely that the Mu family had a long history, and that was why there were many clansmen. In truth, these people did not have much of a familial relationship with the Mu family. There was nothing Old Master Mu was reluctant to let go. Previously, he was just unable to put his foot down and make a decision. The matter this time had allowed him to clearly understand that the Mu family needed to be sorted out. The approaching enemies had not been killed, yet internal strife had happened. This kind of thing happening once was more than enough. He did not want such a thing to happen a second time. Chapter 1200. Big black and white phoenix eye. Mu Huan's face sank. Perhaps she had noticed something. She slowly turned her head around. Suddenly, a weak figure appeared before her. Chen Qingjian's face was pale. She had long been thoroughly disappointed by Mu Ling, so she was not really affected by Mu Ling's defiance of Mu Huan's request to kill Sui. Only her lips curled up into a sarcastic smile. From the moment Mu Ling decided to abandon her, she was no longer the Chen Qingyan she was before. Mu Ling. A small, weak voice called out, just like it did in the past. Mu Ling turned his head around and saw Chen Qingyan, who looked a little old. Chen Qingyan slowly walked closer and looked at Mu Ling, who was kneeling on the floor, seemingly condescending. That kind of gaze was one that Mu Ling had never seen since he knew Chen Qingyan. Chen Qingyan. He clenched his fists tightly and took a deep breath. Only then did his emotions calm down. What did you come out for? Chen Qingyan laughed lightly. Her laughter was sardonic as her gaze was filled with mockery. I came out to see what you have now become. I had never thought that you would kneel before my daughter just to avoid killing Sui. Chen Qingyan. Mu Ling's eyes were on fire as he stared at Chen Qingyan. You have finally decided to quit acting? Due to her usual gentleness, he had been cheated for so many years. Even when he had uncovered the truth, Chen Qingyan had never admitted to being wrong. He had never thought that she would actually decide to quit acting altogether now. I had never done anything to wrong your Mu family. Everything I did back then was for your own good. It was you who have given up on me, a good person. In my entire life, I have no regrets. Ha ha ha. Old Master Mu started to laugh loudly. No regrets. Your vicious heart is exactly the same as your deceased mother. Your conscience has long been eaten by wolves. Sui, we do not have to be bothered by these people. My Mu family will never back down. Those who back down will no longer be a part of my Mu family. Old Master noticed the clamor outside. He was no longer bothered about the people in the courtyard but walked toward the door with both hands behind his back and steadfast footsteps. From the beginning to the end, Sui did not look at these people. She remained calm and indifferent as she walked past Chen Qingyan without stopping. Chen Qingyan clenched her fists with a death grip. She could not understand. Even at this critical juncture, why was Nan Sui still so calm and indifferent? Was she really unafraid of the people from the Qin family? Me for extra chapters. Mu Ling, Chen Qingyan sneered as she looked at Mu Ling condescendingly and her voice cold. Take a good look. This woman you have chosen in the end had ignored the Mu family for her own life. If it were me, I would definitely not have been like that. Mu Ling froze. He himself did not know if this choice was right or wrong. However, he had done many mistakes in this life. He had also yet to kill anyone he liked. Making him take action against Sui. He really could not do it. Mu Ling lowered his head and looked at his own palm. His handsome face had a bitter smile. I owe Sui too much. I know I cannot compensate for the mistakes I made, but I cannot kill her. The Mu family. I will do my best to protect it. What did Qin Fei need? She only wanted Nan Xian, that was all. Too bad, Nan Xian was not in Tianshan Manor. Otherwise, perhaps the Mu family would still have a chance of survival. Outside the Mu family. The originally quiet street was crowded with people. Chapter 1201, Big Black and White Phoenix 2. The Mu family's gate was blocked by the impenetrable crowd, so thick was the crowd that not even a single fly could fly out. At the forefront of the crowd was a good-looking young girl with soft features and a stunning figure. She seemed even more heroic in the armor she was wearing. Compared to her usual look, she seemed like a completely different person. Standing next to the young girl was a middle-aged man with a handsome and masculine face. His cold eyes were staring straight at the closed gate. Like the Luo family, this old master of the Mu family was also Gu Shi's dog. He had even led a group of people to fight him. He had caught Luo Fei from the Luo family, and now all that was left was this Mu family. Once the Mu family fell, Gu Shi would be left all alone without anyone to help him. Suddenly, the tightly closed gate of the Mu family opened. The old Master Mu, who now was in good health, took a step forward. He was like a big tree, blocking the gate and blocking out the crowd for the Mu family behind him. Sui and the old butler came and stood behind the old Master Mu on each of his sides. Just 3 people, facing countless enemies in front of them. Qin Li, Qin Fei. The old Master Mu glanced at the people present fiercely. Oh, there is also the Shao family from one of the 4 major clans of Tianshan Manor, and the 10 small clans. Besides the 4 major clans, there were also 10 smaller clans in Tianshan Manor. The funny thing was that nowadays, besides him and Luo Fei, no one seemed to be on Gu Shi's side. Mu Ling, Gu Shi is too preoccupied with his life while Luo Fei has been caught again. You are the only one left now. I'll give you a chance if you hand over Nan Xian and Feng Ruqing as well as that rebel's son, Qin Chen, to me. I'll also offer you a chance to join the Qin family. Qin Li straightened his posture and lifted his head haughtily. The old Master Mu laughed coldly. I've never bowed down to anyone in my life, and it will still the same now. Nan Xian is my grandson, Ruqing is my granddaughter-in-law, and Qin Chen has nothing to do with your Qin family since long ago. So why are you asking me to hand them over to you? Oh, I forgot, Qin Li continued, Feng Ruqing and Nan Xian are looking for that dead girl from the Gu family, and nobody knows whether they are alive or dead. It's impossible for you to hand them over. Well, what about handing over Nan Xian's mother to me, and the rift between us will be over. The old Master Mu did not utter a single word but remained cold. There was no wind, but a fierce storm surging up around him, making the entire sky seem colder. Qin Li, I've chosen to come out today, which means that I'm ready to fight you all the way. Boom! The old master's energy surged out of him, pulling the trees in the surroundings from their roots, and toward Qinli and the others. Dark Dragon's roar sounded on an island outside Tianshan Manor. He could not hold back his tears, crying so hard that tears fell like rain. We've finally found a place. 1 year. They had wandered the seas for a whole year. Those spirit beasts in the sea were useless as they could not even find a place for him. In the end, he and the White Phoenix had to walk through countless islands to find this place. Dark Dragon's tears flowed down again as he thought about Feng Ruching, whom he had not seen for over a year. He moved around fast in the sky and soon transformed into a young and handsome man, walking slowly with tears of joy. Chapter 1202, Big Black and White Phoenix 3. The White Phoenix was in tears too. Initially, it wanted to use the Dark Dragon to help it find the route and dump him later, but it never expected to spend a year searching for it. Oh, Sui, I can finally meet you. Oh, I have missed you so much. 1 year. 1 day of not seeing here felt like 3 years. Now, could one count how many years did it feel like they had not seen each other? They were rarely separated from the moment they had met, let alone 1 year apart. Me for extra chapters. It's all your fault. You don't even know the way out, causing me and Sui to be apart for 1 year. And I don't know if my Sui is being bullied by that bastard Mu Ling or not. The White Phoenix wiped the tears from its eyes and glared at the Dark Dragon. The Dark Dragon laughed coldly. You still have the nerve to blame me? This whole year, have you done something else besides eating? When did I not look for a way out? If I had known that you didn't even know the way, I wouldn't have taken a burden like you. The White Phoenix sighed and retorted defiantly. You talk as if you hadn't eaten the chicken drumsticks that I've stolen before. You claim to have a spirit body, and that you don't need to eat anything. If so, don't ever touch my chicken drumsticks again. The Dark Dragon was speechless. Had it not been for Little Nine, he would definitely have killed this White Phoenix. The young man did not pay more attention to the crying White Phoenix. He wiped the tears from his face, grunted coldly, and headed forward in haughty steps. Big Black, wait. You haven't told me yet, how did you transform? The White Phoenix hurriedly chased after him. I've to be human as soon as possible so that I can pursue Sui. I won't let that bastard make the first move. Sui is mine, and no one can touch her. Although Sui had not approved it yet, it had always thought Sui was its woman. The White Phoenix was different from that bastard. It would love only Sui for the rest of its life. Tianshan Manor was quite big. In a small city not far away from Heavenly City, Feng Tianyu stopped in his tracks as he heard the crowd's discussion. I heard that the Qin family has imprisoned the Luo family and is now trying to get rid of the Mu family. Isn't the Luo family the right-hand man of the Gu family? Why is Gu Shi doing nothing when Luo Fei is imprisoned? I'm not sure about this either. I just heard others talking about it. Gu Shi seems to have run into something too, and I'm not sure what those things are. By the way, do you think the old master of the Mu family will be taken away like Luo Fei? Initially, Luo Fei and the Qin family were going to be in-laws, but unexpectedly they have ended up becoming enemies to each other. By the way, the Qin family hates the Mu family because they have taken away the Qin family's adopted son. I wonder what the Mu family has said to that ungrateful boy, giving him the nerve to rebel against the Qin family. If the Qin family had not saved that ungrateful boy in the first place, will he still be alive today? He's willing to bite the hand that feeds him, so no wonder the Qin family is so furious. I've also heard that Qin Fei cares so much about that ungrateful boy since he was a child, giving him all kinds of good things, and treating him as her own brother. But who knew that boy would hurt her just because of another woman? Tisk tisk, it's all karma. That ungrateful boy. His name is Qin Shen, right? In my opinion, the old master of the Mu family isn't any better either. They're all a bunch of people who deserve to die. Nalan Yan's footsteps were a bit unsteady. She stumbled a few times and almost fell to the ground. Luckily, Feng Tianyu had noticed it and quickly wrapped his arms around her. Chapter 1203, Qin Shen. When Qing'er came to fetch me, I have met Qin Shen at the Tang family's house. Nalan Yan's face was pale. I was quite fond of that kid back then. Although he had a cold personality, I could tell, just by looking at him, that he was a good kid. Feng Tianyu remained silent, tightening his arms around Nalan Yan's trembling body. Jiu Ming has told us that within Tianshan Manor, only the adopted son from the Qin family came from an unknown background. It is more likely that he is our child. I believe what Paramount says. Yenner, but how can it be Qin Shen? How can it be him? If Qin Shen was her child, it meant that all this time, her child was standing in front of her, and she did not even recognize him. These people claimed that Qin Shen was an ungrateful son, but since the first meeting, she could see that Qin Shen was not like what they had said. That was impossible. Nalan Yan tightened her grip on Feng Tianyu's hand. How far is this place from Tianshan Manor? I want to go to Tianshan Manor right now. I want to see him. Now. Whether Qin Shen was her child or not, she would never let him encounter any danger. She felt that Qin Shen could easily get her attention, and she had grown somewhat fond of him. At that time, considering that Qin Shen was Qing'er's friend, she had thought that it was natural for her to have such feelings. She had never thought otherwise. In her mind, since her son and her daughter were born at the same time, they should look a little bit alike. And for this reason, she simply ignored all the doubts that she had back then. Yenner, don't worry. He'll be fine, and so will the in-laws. We need to rush to the Mu family now. Feng Tianyu's expression was cold and sullen. It was as if a violent storm was going to explode inside his eyes. Hopefully, they could arrive in time. Mu Manor, Heavenly City. A whirl of strong wind blew into Qin Li's sleeve and collided with the old Master Mu's energy in the air. A loud bang echoed in the sky and sent those of lower tier flying out. Qin Li's sleeves were torn to pieces, and a thin line of blood dripped from the corner of his mouth. He wiped it off with the back of his hand and looked up at the calm old man in the void. Compared to that Luo Fei of the Luo family, this old master of the Mu family was too powerful, and it was not easy to go against his strength. Me for extra chapters. Therefore, when the old Master Mu was about to rush forward again, Qin Li had already taken a few steps backward and sneered. Boom! A figure dressed in green flashed through the air, blocking Qin Li's face. The young woman lifted her sleeves and blocked all the forces that came from the old Master Mu's sudden attack, deflecting it to him. A powerful force blasted into the old master's chest. He snorted and spat out a mouthful of blood, falling backward before landing on the steps. Old Master. Master. Sui and the old butler's expressions changed drastically. They rushed toward the old master and lifted his trembling body. The old master's face was pale as he stared at Qin Feier with a serious look. Feier, kill this old thief of the Mu family. Qin Li sneered and laughed coldly. So what if this old bastard of the Mu family was better than him? That old man had lost to his daughter. A few moments later, Qin Feier still did not make any move. Her hands were clenched into fists, and her face seemed to be somewhat in discomfort. Her forehead was already covered in cold sweats and her lips were slightly pale. Chapter 1204, Qin Shen 2, Feier. Qin Li frowned and asked again. Qin Feier took a deep breath, gradually regaining some calmness as she said, I'm fine. It's just that when I arrived here, I think about the humiliation that I have once suffered in the Mu family. I just can't hold it back anymore. Seriously? Are you alright? Qin Li was vaguely uneasy. Recently, Qin Feier seemed to have aged a lot, so he must be sure that there was nothing wrong with her body. After all, the Qin family would have to rely on her strength now. He could not bear it if anything happened to her. Yes, Qin Fei responded softly. She clutched her chest as her eyes fell again upon the Mu family's gate. For some reason, when she had used her spirit power just now, she felt like her heart was on fire, and the pain was unbearable. But for the Qin family's sake. And to not lose her dignity in front of her family again, regardless of how painful her heart felt, she had to bear it. Sui. Cough. Cough. The old master had already stood up, but his health was not as fairly good as before, and his steps were even a bit shaky. This war is unavoidable. I only ask you for one thing: when I'm not around anymore, I hope that you can manage the Mu family for me. Sui lifted the old master's arm. Old master, I knew that the Mu family's collaterals aren't all good, but not all of them are bad, such as Elder Zhang, who guarded the spirit herb chamber, and Mu Zhong, the head of the imperial guard back then. And those old people who have been driven out since I became ill. The Mu family's empire has survived for over 1,000 years, and I don't want the Mu family to be destroyed. But I believe that as long as someone is still alive, there is always hope for the Mu family to rebuild. You and Nancian are the hope of the Mu family. The old master's heart was like a clear mirror. Mu Qinjian's was too naive and unsuitable to manage the Mu family. Sui was not vicious enough, but she had a son, Nancian. Therefore, these few were the only people he could trust in the Mu family. Old master, don't be ridiculous. Who said you would die today? I'll protect you and get you out of here. Ha ha ha. The old master was laughing so hard that his tears were rolling down his face. I've never done anything evil in my life, and the only mistake that I've done was giving birth to that little bastard Mu Ling who has caused so many problems. If Mu Ling had not wanted Qin Fei to marry Nancian as his concubine, she would not have been so obsessed and would not have hated the Mu family to this extent. Me for extra chapters. In short, everything that happened was Mu Ling's fault. Old Master Mu pushed away Sui's hand and gradually walked toward Qin Fei firmly and steadily. He was determined to fight until his last breath. Qin Fei, not only does my grandson not want to take you as his concubine, but I'm also disgusted by a woman like you. Feng Ruqing is my only granddaughter-in-law. If you keep pestering my grandson again, I won't let you go even when I've become a ghost. Qin Fei had never been humiliated like this since she was a child. His face turned paler. She held the long sword on her hand and thrust it into the old Master Mu's body, sending him back a few steps. Blood oozed from the old Master Mu's chest, but he did not even frown. His gaze remained cold and stern. You're tuning into the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.